it wasn't a side hustle ever for us. We just got the licensing rights to this cutting edge tech in a huge category. People in that industry believed that it should be a healthcare professional-led brand. But I saw a huge opportunity in the category to do something different and actually go against the grain. There was a lot of stress in the business. We're getting to the end of that 250,000. Like the runway was out. We're personally guaranteeing that loan. We're gonna lose all our friends' money. We're gonna lose all our money. It's such a all-consuming thing. You know, you have this thing that runs your life, so you have to love it and prioritize joy at like every single part that you can.
Hear the stories, learn the proven methods, and accelerate your growth and future through entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Foundr podcast with Nathan Chan.
All right, Rachel, here we are in the studio. Thank you for coming down. You've been able to slot this one in amongst all of your other meetings, but we're saying offline, it's so good to talk in person. So the founder of TBH Skincare, but now you've recently merged. I want to talk about that, York Street Brands. You've merged the business, but talk to us about how you started this amazing brand in 2019. What led to you starting TBH?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a
You're
pleasure
welcome.
to be here. The story about starting TBH is a little bit of a different one. I think I always say I wasn't someone that ever had an aspiration to start a business. It wasn't really something that was ever playing on my mind. I was obsessed with marketing. That's where I found myself in my sort of after school life, was at uni studying marketing. I loved it.
Yep.
Ended up being a bit of a nerd at uni for marketing and just felt like I was quite a creative person when I was coming out of school. I didn't know whether I wanted to do sort of like design, like fashion design, interior design, or whether, you know, I wanted to do something a bit more structured like marketing. And I figured I had quite an analytical brain at the same time, but was quite creative, and marketing was such a good blend of those two things. So ended up in a marketing degree, loved it, came out of uni and just ended up in a pretty, I would say a regular corporate job, but it wasn't super regular. It was in medical devices, which was an industry that I never even realized existed until I was in it. You know, I'd never considered how products get sold into hospital and healthcare, you know, the things that get used during a surgery, like how they get there, who sells them, what companies create them. And that's essentially the world that I found myself in after university. So landed a job in medical devices and was there for about 2.5 years. But funnily enough, I was their first ever social media head. And a highly regulated industry. Like you wonder how social media really plays into the selling of medical devices. It was heavily B2B focused, and that digital team was in its infancy when I joined that company. And by the time I left, it was a team of 30. So I had really good commercial experience in that role. I learned a lot, you know, about basically how businesses work.
Yes.
You know, I was privy to the fact that, you know, we were a distribution company. There were agreements between sort of the suppliers and the company, you know, engaged to sell the products, how the sales force worked, all of these different things that I guess unless you go into a job like that, you just wouldn't even know. And it was through that job that I came across a technology that ended up being the whole thing that started TBH Skincare. So one of the companies in this field was had this incredible patent that could break down what's called biofilm in the body. It sounds really technical. It's basically just a really core part of fighting bacteria. And so infection control, wound care, like it has all these different applications. And they also realized that it could be used to treat acne. And so coming across that type of a product and then knowing how that distribution model worked, I was interested mainly from a consumer point of view, being such a big beauty consumer, having acne for such a long period of time. I was interested in the tech that was going behind it because it was very different to anything in market. I read the entire patent behind the technology, which is like 40 pages.
Yes.
And I was like, this is amazing. And then they had done initial clinical trials against, you know, your salicylic acid, benzoyl peroxides.
Yep.
It had really impressive results. It was gentle. So I was like, what's happening with this amazing tech and this product? And then I knew how a company like that typically worked off a distribution model, and they were focused in hospital and healthcare, but they had this beauty product, which is like a completely different industry and, you know, one that you can leverage through ecom and all these different things. So started asking a few questions, and I think I've always been someone that took that type of an interest in, you know, how brands come to be. I was always someone that read a lot of like strategy books, like business books. You know, people joke that I like can't read a fiction book. I've actually forced myself into reading fiction now. But yeah, I just loved all that stuff. I loved strategy, and I did actually my like favorite, and I sound like an absolute A-type like nerd here, but my favorite course at uni was marketing strategy. And yeah, it sort of pulled the whole way through like my early career. I just loved sitting in that strategy piece. So coming across the tech, my brain naturally went to like, what happens with a business like this? What's the possibility? And it was coupled with like a lot of naivety as a 23-year-old, thinking like, oh, I've started to see as a consumer these ecom brands come in and start to boom with influence marketing and meta ads. Like it was that era. I was probably like the tail end probably of that era. Like, you know, your High Smiles, your Frank Bodies, like they had all come into existence and boomed. And I was like, what if that type of like brand experience could be brought into acne, but with a patented tech that is, you know, at its core, at a formulation level, like entirely different. And so this ended up being like a dinner table conversation between myself and my mum and her partner. And I was like, yeah, I think there's like a huge business here. And that then entailed in us going into business together, myself and my mum. She, again, has never started a business before. She's not, you know, like I would say I'm more of like that risk, like I have more of a risk appetite. She's an accountant by trade, like very analytical, like really in the numbers. She had worked in management consulting, legal services, like big corporate industries in that accounting you know, role, and she'd started her career in like a big four. Like so different to then going like, okay, I'm going to do a skincare startup with my daughter. But the two of us decided that it was something that we thought was really cool and wanted to do. So in the next 2 weeks after that dinner table conversation, we actually ended up securing a meeting with that company to talk about licensing the tech. And after hours, so I'd go to work, come home, and in the evening, you know, after work, I would start building what I thought the brand could look like, how we would launch it, what we would name it, like the go-to-market strategy, the tech stack, like the ecom tech stack I was already like looking at in the hours after work, and put together a pitch deck, and she did all the startup modeling and costing based on that. And then, we went and pitched for the licensing rights and we won them.
Wow. Okay. So then that was 2019?
That was, the end of 2019.
Okay. So just before COVID.
Yes. So it was about October, and I quit my job as soon as we won those licensing rights, and then we launched in market. I think it was the 18th of March, 2020. Okay. So it's pretty quick turnaround. Fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk me through that.
Yeah, well, I think the good thing was that we had the formula at least. So it wasn't like we were formulating from scratch. That product was ready. So it was about building the brand. What did that, like, you know, finalizing the name, getting the trademarks, incorporating, like building that corporate structure, which I think it was really helpful having someone like my mum in the business, because she was like, okay, we're going to have a parent company that, you know, then, which was actually really clever. That came in handy later. So sort of a bit of corporate structure. Then we worked with a agency just to develop the visual identity side of the brand. So I had done all the tone of voice piece, you know, all of that brand work. And then it was designing the website, which I did with a mate. Like I did it with a friend who was like just studying design.
On Shopify?
Yes. Well, we designed it, and then I actually engaged a developer. I did a custom build.
Okay. Wow. All right.
Yeah, from the start. But it wasn't crazy. I think it cost us maybe 10 grand, which is pretty, like quite a bit.
That's a lot for starting.
We did raise money with family and friends.
Okay.
I forgot that part. So yes, once we'd done the startup modeling, we went, okay, well now we actually need to get the money. We tipped in our own money.
Yep.
And then we went out to about 10 family and friends, and
Yep.
they put in, sort of between 10 and 20,000
Yep.
each. And we
Yep.
were like, it can't break the friendship.
Yep.
Again, we might lose all the money. Like we think it could, has legs, but we've never done anything like this before. So nothing's guaranteed. And they came in. So we had about 250,000 to
Yep.
start.
Got you.
And we went straight to the bank and got a loan.
On top of that.
On top of that, for $120,000.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you basically had close to $400,000 to
Yeah.
launch.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big move. First
Yeah.
business with your mum.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we just were so excited by the tech that we were like, we have to do it justice. Like this
Yeah.
is going to be a real business. It wasn't a side hustle ever
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
It was like we just got the licensing rights to this, global
Yeah.
tech.
Cutting edge.
Yeah, like it's cutting edge tech in a huge category.
Yes.
Like we have to make it work. I think that was the thinking.
Yes.
But yeah, we had to buy a lot of stock in the beginning.
Yeah.
So the majority, I think it was like $100,000 went straight to stock.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's the thing with a product-based business is the cash goes out the door quickly.
Yes. So did you launch with just the one hero product, or talk us through that?
No. So again, I'd done a little bit of research around how to sort of build a proper ecom sort of business. I knew that having one SKU was going to really hurt things like average order value,
Yes.
not give people sort of like options for bundling or
Yep.
anything like that. So wanted to have sort of like a small, medium and large bundle
Yep.
for people to pick from, like very basics, like fundamentals down. And so we brought in a cleanser.
Yep.
And we actually we were waiting on the cleanser with the tech in it to come, and
Yes.
I think we found out on Christmas Eve that it wasn't going to be ready in time. And we were like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Like we don't have time to formulate. So we went and found a ready to go formula that was like a gentle cleanser. I was guinea pig basically for trialing a whole bunch.
Yes.
Again, did basic research on like, okay, what do each of these ingredients do? What do we want to avoid? And just bringing in something really simple that the customers will know won't hurt their skin, but it wasn't doing any treatment. It was like, this is a gentle cleanser. This is your spot treatment. And then that was like ready to go. And then we brought in a little device to cleanse your skin with. And that was what we launched with. It was the 3 products.
Yep. Okay. Wow. And it sounds like from what I'm hearing, there was no point in time where you and your mum were like, this isn't going to work. Like immediately in your mind, it was going to work, right? Or there was a little bit of apprehension, or I'm hearing a lot of confidence when you tell the story though.
Yeah, there was. I think it was a lot of excitement.
Yep.
And I think we really believed in the product. Like the product is incredible.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what guided us, I think.
Yep. Okay. And so you have the licensing rights basically to sell B2B and B2C, right? Or just B2C?
Just B2C.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Just B2C. Okay. And then talk me through your pre-launch.
So pre-launch was very organic. We
Yep.
did have like a small scale photo shoot, obviously to get all the ecom
Yep.
assets ready. I was sharing on Instagram, like I set up the social media page. I told everyone that I had quit my job on my own social media channel and that I was going and doing this thing, which at the time, again, I didn't even hesitate to do that. A lot of people were like, what if it doesn't work? And you've just told people like you're doing this thing. Like now it's your face all over it and like it could not work. Like the Instagram page was at 0 followers. But yeah, again, I don't think I really stopped to consider that outcome. So started sharing just organically on Instagram the different stages of, setting it up, where we were at, the photo shoot, the products arriving.
Yep.
We also started running we only had maybe like 20 samples.
Yes.
And so we started sending those out to people to try and, sort of give us results, feedback, reviews that we could then sort of use as testimonials when we launched.
Yep.
And so, yeah, we went through a very organic, low spend, low fi sort of process pre-launch and generated a small wait list of people.
Yep.
And I think the Instagram page was probably only at about 1,000 followers by the time we launched.
Yep. So that was from, when did you start building your wait list and the like the pre-launch? When did that kick off? Because you said you launched. When did you launch?
March. So it would have kicked
So
off.
on like literally when COVID hit.
Yeah, that is exactly when COVID. We were
Yeah.
going into our first lockdown when we launched.
Yep.
But the waitlist build would have been probably from the start of the year or late 2019.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So 3-4 months. And around how many people did you have on the wait list?
I think it would have been like 800 max.
Yep. Okay. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Okay. And so you launched March. I remember that time there was a lot of fear, right? And that March, we experienced it in both of the businesses. I had an ecom business and also Foundr. We experienced a decline in sales, but then April it started to pick up.
Yeah.
So did you guys, you launched in March. What did that launch look like? How did you go? How many did you make? Talk us through.
Yeah, well, we had nothing to compare it to, right?
Yep.
And, you know, having my mum in the business, we had done month by month sort of forecast.
Yep.
And the forecast for month one was $0.
Yes.
So
okay.
she's conservative. It's not like we had said like, oh yeah, you know, a certain amount of the wait lists are going to convert. This is how much we think we're going to get in. Like we didn't do that. We just said, you know what, we're going to get $0. Let's just go worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of funny because that's how we continued to forecast. Like way into probably like 18 months later, we were still going like, what's the worst case scenario? We had the most conservative forecast. And so, yeah, we did $4,000 worth of sales in our first day.
Awesome.
Yeah, which was amazing. And the majority, I'd say like probably 50% of that was like really supportive family and friends.
Yep.
But yeah, the other half was people who had been sort of watching along and were keen to try it.
Yep. Got you. And look, that was a really scary time. Like knowing what was going to happen. Were you guys that phased by COVID back then or not really? Just more focused on the excitement of the launch, this business? Like there was like, you know, people didn't know what was going to happen. Like,
yeah. Again, I think the way that I saw it was people aren't going to be shopping in store. They're not going to be spending money going out. They're going to spend all of their time on their devices. This is probably the perfect time to be launching on an ecom like base business. Like we're going to be able to capture attention online. And I actually think that was true because we had nothing to compare it to, right? So I didn't know whether COVID was helping, whether it was hindering in terms of sales. And when the first lockdown lifted, we actually saw a drop in ecom sales.
And you were only selling to Australia, not the world?
Yeah, no, only Australia.
Okay.
And we already had all our stock here. So, and by that, you know, we're small. So we got like our year's worth of stock, you know, like it was okay. It wasn't like we were having to replenish this and then we were dealing with, you know, huge delays, which obviously there were on a lot of stock. I could imagine if you were like already a booming business and then that happened, that would cause all sorts of issues to supply chain. But we were lucky in that we didn't really have that.
Yeah, no. So it was a perfect storm. So talk to me around the branding and developing the brand and what people could learn from the playfulness that you've brought and the community that you've built from the early days. Because I think knowing what you've shared around your passion for marketing and strategy and being quite commercial like that was not by mistake.
No, it wasn't by mistake. Yeah, that was very intentional and actually something that I had to push for in a lot of instances in terms of, you know, you're obviously seeking feedback from a lot of people and a lot of people in that industry who knew this medical tech believed that it should be a healthcare professional-led brand or a clinical brand because it was about heroing this amazing science in the product. But I saw a huge opportunity in the category to do something different and actually go against the grain in that way and go sort of more brand-led, community-led rather than sort of professional-led.
Yes.
And so when I was looking at, you know, how to position it, I had all of my, you know, axes competitor maps out, you know, with price points, with efficacy, with tone of voice, with brand experience. Like I was mapping all of the competitors onto this axes, like, and I did like 20 and trying to figure out where the white space was. And it was so obviously in this like high efficacy, but really like strong brand voice space.
Yes.
And so I just went straight there to play. And because I was the customer, I had that personal experience that I could relate that back to. I had gone through a very emotional experience with acne, and is the only way I would describe it. Is anyone who's dealt with that problem knows just how difficult it is, but the way in which the brands were dealing with, that pain point for the customer wasn't actually empathizing with what they were going through or speaking to the true heart of how they were feeling.
Yes.
And so I knew that there was an opportunity to connect with the customer in a different way than what all these other brands were doing.
Yeah, I see. So because the thing is, right, like you launched your 3 products, your hero product was an acne hack cream.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a pretty strong name for a product, acne hack.
Mm-hmm.
Like I haven't had really big skincare challenges throughout my life. I actually used to have a lot of eczema when I was a kid though, like really, really bad. Like it was terrible.
Yeah, right.
That when I was a baby, my mum told me people used to come up to me and be like, "Oh, he's so cute," but then they get close and they see I had all these rashes on my face. But then I grew out of it. But no, acne wasn't really a challenge for me. But one thing I do know is like, you do get like pimples here and there. It's hard to know what works.
100%.
So it's a very saturated market. There's a lot of solutions.
Yeah.
So what you've done from a branding standpoint, how you've positioned it, like even just the name of the product, I think is very interesting to me. Like acne hack cream. Like I've never seen so I'm curious what else were you doing to stand out and make sure that people looked at you guys as an alternative solution? Because there are a lot of products out there.
Yeah, a lot of products for acne. I think it was very much about that community build, and I think we leveraged the fact that I had been the customer as a real connection point for the customer. So the experience that I had been through was so similar to what the customers had gone through, which was go through a traditional treatment pathway with your GP, get prescribed prescription topical treatments. When that doesn't work, you get prescribed, the oral antibiotic treatments. When that doesn't work.
Oh, so like Roaccutane, right?
This was like minomycin, so not as full on as Roaccutane.
Yes.
It was sort of a pathway that a lot of people in my generation, like going through that teenage period, we all went through the exact same treatment pathway.
Yes.
And, it was getting prescribed the contraceptive pill.
Yes.
And there were all these people who were coming off the contraceptive pill later on who were then dealing with adult acne again.
Yes.
And so we actually had quite a core niche within like acne itself that we were talking to through my own story. It was like, you've tried this, you've tried that.
Yeah, so really speaking to the customer.
Yeah, well, I was just sharing that story, and I think so many people saw themselves in that.
Yes. And
then they were able to trust because they could see that there was someone behind the brand that really understood what they had gone through. Yeah.
So back then though, there was not as many, like it's becoming a much more of a thing, and I think will continue to rise. Is founder-led brands and building in public. Yeah. Right. How did you work that out? How did you build the confidence to put yourself out there? Because a lot of people, that's a common question that comes up. Like people have that fear of putting themselves out there, worried what other people will think. Yeah. Even worried about that fear of failure, not even knowing like that strategically it is a massive trend that we're seeing.
Yeah. It's such a hard thing to answer because I don't even think that I have that mastered now. I've always been someone that has been like quite extroverted. Yes. I love like social connection is like, I think every test that I've done has put me in like the 96th percentile of extroverted. Yes. So talking to people and connecting with people is something that I think comes quite naturally, but that's not to say that I did not second guess myself that whole way through. I just think I didn't stop to think too much about it. Yes. I didn't try and construct it in a certain way, if that makes sense. Like it was very organic. If there was something happening, it was almost like in my DNA a little bit to pick up my phone and document it. I was always that person in my social life. Like if you watch me go on a holiday, everyone's like, I'm with you the entire way. Yes. at the airport. Like every single step I
Yes.
documented and uploaded because that was my natural habit.
Yes.
More as like a way of just connecting with my friends. Like I'm not an influencer or anything. That was just what I did.
Yes.
And so I just took that into the business. It was very organic. It wasn't really something that I ever thought I need to do this to like build the brand. It was
Yes.
something that I almost just had fun with along the way. And obviously it's a huge trend now.
Yes.
And it's definitely something people are trying to lean into. I would say practice makes perfect. I would say like the more content that you put out, the more chance you have of something like really hitting and going viral.
Yes.
So just go ham, like go as nuts as you can with putting as much content out there
Yes.
as possible. And you'll learn what works and what doesn't.
Yes.
But the confidence to do that only comes with practice, I think.
Yeah, 100%. So when it came to social, that's been a big channel for you guys. Instagram versus TikTok, talk us through differences, things that you see, how it's progressed over the years and what's really working now.
Yeah, we built the brand on Instagram.
Yep.
So it was sort of pre-TikTok.
Yep.
And I think we still have the most engaged community on Instagram.
Yes.
So I think the community build is still where it's at in terms of like Instagram being the hero platform for that
Yes.
community build for us.
Yes.
But we're seeing a new audience come in with TikTok where you have like that Instagram piece, it's incremental and you build it very intentionally over a long period of time. With TikTok, you can build that overnight. And I think that's the incredible opportunity that founders today have, is to find this audience on TikTok and find it quickly. But it's a game of patience and just grit, because you have to be ready for things to just not work time and time again until you get that breakthrough. But we had the breakthrough on TikTok in 2022 where we had a video go viral and it brought in an entire like customer base for us that we didn't have before. It was slightly younger and it actually turned the business profitable basically overnight.
So talk me through that. Like talk me through that. Like what was the video? We can pull it up and like, you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, like so talk me through that.
So this was sort of in like so this was 2022.
Yes.
We had been working in a co-working space by this point. So we had sort of gone through the first phase of the business, which was the first 18 months. We were in COVID, we were working from home, we were packing and fulfilling from home.
Yep.
And it
Rite
was
of passage.
all very small scale.
Yeah.
We then decided sort of after that we were at a size where we could move into a co-working space, keep all of the product in a small warehouse, work from there as well. And we wanted to hire in a part-time marketing coordinator.
Yep.
We did that. So it was sort of phase 2. That was where we were at when this happened.
Yes.
And things were going well. I think we were, at about 650K in revenue a year.
Yep.
So solid.
Yeah.
But not profitable. We were still burning through cash and we were spending a lot on marketing.
Yeah. So why is that?
Why were we not profitable?
Yeah.
We were reinvesting everything.
Okay. So it was by design.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because without the marketing, we didn't have the revenue.
Yes.
And so we hadn't yet reached that critical mass
Yep.
where we could essentially profitably scale. It was like trying to build that customer database to that critical mass.
Yep. Okay.
So that we could get past that.
Yes.
We had an incredible view on our e-commerce stats because of Bridget, who's my mum in the business, doing all the analysis on the back end and being pure play. We had like the cleanest amount of data there.
Yes.
So we could see cohorts, how like when they came back to buy, how, the retention rate, the customer lifetime value. So all our forecasts were built bottom up on,
Yes.
we knew like guaranteed when the customers were coming back, it was like cyclical. Like it was every single cohort was the same.
Yes.
So we had then built those forecasts bottom up. We knew where the critical mass was. And we were pushing to that.
Got you. And can you talk me through what was the critical mass?
I mean, I don't even remember the exact number, but we could see the baseline business building.
Yes.
Because of the fact that it was a consumable, so people were coming back.
Yep.
And so we knew that if we could build the base to a certain level,
Yes. It'd be self-sustaining.
then it would self-sustain. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Got you. All right. So 18 months.
Yeah.
You started playing around with TikTok.
Yeah. very like lightheartedly. We'd
Yep.
started up a TikTok page for TBH. I also had my own personal TikTok, which I just messed around on. Like it wasn't business orientated at all.
Yes.
And that was just a COVID like hobby or
Yep.
like bit of fun that I was having.
Yep.
And then TBH, we were doing things here and there. We weren't particularly consistent. It was something that I'd brought in a marketing coordinator to also have a look at and play with and help me film stuff.
Yep.
But there was no real strategy. It was just like, again, let's put out as much content as we can in a week with everything else going on and wearing all the other hats in the business.
Yep.
And just see what happens. And one day, my marketing coordinator got sent a segment that was on radio that Abby Chatfield had hosted this segment, and they were talking about acne in the segment. And she mentioned the product and said, for anyone out there who's, you know, is struggling with their skin, this is the product that like cleared my skin. It's incredible, you know, and it was like a sort of throwaway line, but it was in there. And she got sent it 5 days later after the radio segment aired by a friend saying, oh my goodness, I'm just listening back to the radio segment on Spotify because it got uploaded in Spotify episodes. Have you guys seen this? And I was like, oh my gosh, no, haven't seen that. And I was leaving for the day. I was like, I'm going to listen to it when I get into the car. Went and got in the car and thought I'd seen people filming like blind react videos in the car. And so I thought I'm going to film like a blind react to hearing this for the first time. So I just put it on in the car. I was just sitting in the car listening. And my reaction's not even that crazy. Like I've just heard it and I was like, whoa, what the hell, you know? And then I put it up and captioned it and put a bit of text on screen, whatever, uploaded it to my personal page and didn't look twice. Like I edited it there and then in the car, uploaded it and drove home. And I wasn't, back then I used TikTok so much more these days. So I wasn't someone that was like I was on Instagram, like, you know, at night. I didn't actually open my TikTok app until the next morning. And I opened it and of course I had my Shopify notifications on. So I woke up in the morning and I was like, what are all these orders? Like I had like hundreds of orders just randomly overnight. I was like, what is like, it didn't even register to me like something's happened with the TikTok video. I was like, what's happened? And then I opened my TikTok and my TikTok was at about 70,000 views. So solid for overnight, definitely more than I'd ever gotten on any other video, but not like a million. Like we've seen more virality since then, but this was a video that converted. It had everything in it. It was organic. It had social proof because of the content of the video, you know, with Abby sort of recommending the product. And so it was like that social proof, the organic nature of it.
Hey guys, I really hope you're feeling inspired from today's interview. Now the truth is, all successful e-commerce founders started from zero, with a spark of an idea and a whole lot of determination. But let's be real, building or growing an e-commerce business is no walk in the park. And that's where Foundr Plus comes in, which I'm really excited to share with you. It's a culmination of a decade worth of work at Foundr. So if you're feeling stuck in your e-commerce business, you're lacking confidence to move forward, or you're worried about making costly mistakes or not knowing how to grow your business, Foundr Plus is here to support you on your journey. You get access to a customized learning pathway with proven frameworks from successful e-commerce founders for fast results, incredible programs, a supportive community, weekly live mentorship, exclusive savings on startup tools, and 24/7 real human support. Try Foundr Plus today for just $1 for 7 days so you can accelerate your business goals. Visit foundr.com/start $trial or click the link in the description to claim your trial. All right, now let's jump back in the show. Yeah, talk through the problem and the problem that it solved, before and after state. Gold with CTA. Was there CTA?
There was no CTA. But I think that like people went looking. People were like, what is the product? I also love that as like a idea as like bury the lead. Don't give everything away in a video because it drives engagement when people are like, what are they talking about? And then they feel the need to have it. They'll go digging. This is a generation who can find anything on the internet. So don't feel the need to be like, shop it out, you know? But so this was like that. It was just a very organic video. It made people be like, what is this product? Everyone was talking about it. And then it was just driving like sales immediately. So it wasn't even just an awareness thing. It was like doing everything. Awareness, consideration was the whole way through the funnel in one video, and we paid nothing for it. We took that opportunity and we ran with it. Like as soon as that happened, it was, I understood that, I was jumping on making follow-up videos of, oh my goodness, this video went viral. These are the orders that we got through, bringing people in to the inside of what had just happened to the business.
Yes.
And then that got pitched as a media story as well. Media picked that up. They thought it was really interesting.
Yes.
So then media started talking about it. Great. We had media articles that we could use in ads. This thing took on a life of its own,
Yes.
but also very intentionally. We knew how to take, and I think this is what you learn as a founder, is like, you don't let a moment like that die. It's a once, it's like, it's like a shooting star. You got to catch it and run.
Yes.
And if you let it go, like, it's just such a wasted opportunity. So yeah, we just took it and ran with it and never looked back. It took on, I think it went like that piece of creative
Yes.
was generating income for the business for about 9 months.
Yeah. Wow.
And it had like an under $10 CPA.
Yeah. Okay. So then you took that creative and ran.
Yeah. Ran it in ads.
Yeah. Got you. Under $10 CPA with an average order value of what? 80 to $100. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's awesome.
So then you talk about profitability, because also that's the moment that I realized scalability came from content. Good content. Good content scales businesses so profitably.
Okay. All right. So now we're getting somewhere. So talk me through what happened next, because you started as time went on to scale the business also through retail.
Yes.
When did that start?
We were having conversations with Priceline at this exact moment. I don't know what happened in August of 2022, but we had conversations around the merger.
Yep.
We had this TikTok go viral, and we were in conversations with Priceline.
Yeah.
So the business went from 0 to 100.
Yep.
Like very, very quickly.
Yep.
Which was incredible. And we were struggling to keep stock then on shelf.
Yep.
And we couldn't keep up with order packing, and we were hiring casuals every week, and we had a whole set of different problems on our hands. But we were talking to Priceline. We had pitched to them and sent them product. And by the time it eventually came around to their next range review, they wrote back and we had a pitch meeting with them.
Yep. Yep. And why Priceline?
Oh, I loved Priceline from the beginning, and I was very set on it. And again, I got feedback on this, sort of saying, but if you want to be the best in class Australian beauty brand, at that time period, it was like everyone just wanted Mecca. And Mecca's incredible. I'm a Mecca shopper. I love Mecca.
Yeah.
But if I am someone that I think I really understood who this customer was.
Yes.
And the fact is, if you're dealing with a really bad breakout, or you're struggling with your confidence and your skin, and you're in that, Mecca's not somewhere where you're naturally going to go for an in-store discovery.
Yes.
We loved the fact, we still wanted to hero the science behind the product.
Yes.
It was a medically sort of like backed product.
Yes.
And therefore we loved having a pharmacist in store. We loved the fact that it was positioned with the other clinical products in the market.
Yes.
And also from a price point, perspective, we never wanted to price this aspirationally. It was never going to be luxury. It was never going to be out of reach. That was not how we wanted the brand to sit. It was, this brand was for everyone who was dealing with that problem, and we wanted to make it as easy as we could for people to get their hands on it. So Priceline was that partner in my mind, because it had that blend of being a beauty destination, and it was also that pharmacy that people trusted. And that was mums as well with teenagers. It had a broader sort of reach, and into regional areas as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like the Priceline deal eventually came to life.
Yeah.
Did you have to raise any money? Because I know you did do an equity base. So when was that?
Equity crowdfunding was actually 12 months before that. So it was in October of 2021.
Okay.
And that was to build out new product, because we only had the 3 products to begin with. Then we brought in the other cleanser.
Yes.
And then we wanted to build out a range, keeping in mind there was a few things we were trying to achieve with that. We'd had feedback from potential investors that our margins weren't strong enough to withstand retail, international distribution models, like anything like that. It was just like, you're going to build a business that doesn't have enough margin in it, which was such a good insight.
What margin do you think people should be aiming for?
it depends what category you're in, but in a category like this, the feedback we were getting was it has to be above 70% and ideally above 80.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we realized that we had some work to do.
Yep.
And we didn't mind sort of having loss leaders almost in the range where we had the hero SKUs with lower margins, but other, like from a blended point of view, we could then support scale.
Yes.
So we wanted to build out the product line from a business perspective to sort of almost fix that model. But also there were all these other products that our customers were asking for. And so we wanted to then go and be bringing in these other products that they were looking for because they had built that trust through the core products with the brand, and then they wanted more.
Yes. And why did you choose to go to your community versus going back to perhaps friends and family?
For the crowdfund, I think we were sitting down assessing all options, and we loved the idea that we would get buy-in here from a community that would then get to really understand the business, what we were trying to achieve, and then almost become champions of that.
Yes.
At a broader scale. And yeah, I loved that it gave people an opportunity to get in on the ground floor with the brand. And so I thought it was a really cool model and something that was quite new to Australia still when we were doing it. So we did it through Equitize. And yeah, I think we didn't think too much, not like we assessed heaps of different options. To be honest, it was a really tough capital market, capital market when we were looking to raise that money.
Yes.
So it was like every option was on the table, but this was one that we really loved and we saw it working well for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay. So tell me, when you said you were talking about the merger. Before we talk about the merger, I want to talk about kind of that scaling piece. You talked about the content piece, that aha moment, which really catapulted the brand. What are some other things that really catapulted the brand and really took you from that next step change? Because you guys are at, I think, 20 million a year now. Is that right?
Yeah. So combined York Street, we just finished FY24 at 22.
Yep.
So TBH is 10 mil
yes,
now.
Got you. So what were some other really kind of growth catalyst moments or channels or times that you saw things really go?
I think in the initial phases, like how we got initially to the 650 was heavily through partnering with the right influencers at that time. And on longer term, they were more ambassadors than they were like influencers, because they worked with us on a 6 to 12 month basis, and we didn't have mass of them. We had like a few that we had really trusted, great relationships with. And I think that worked really well for us. We also had a lot of media interest in the early days. So we were able to get quite strong media cut through. And I think in beauty, that gives you a certain level of credibility that we needed.
Yes.
Because otherwise we were just another new ecom brand. And we actually had something really novel behind the brand that media loved and were able to talk about. And I think that really helped us like gain that credibility and trust quickly with the customer group.
Yes.
So that was, I think, two of the things that were really important. And that was the fire that we started alongside the organic piece. I would say that was like the fire that we had going, where then when we turned on meta ads, we were able to actually get something out of that channel.
Yes.
Because I think if we didn't have that, meta ads at that time would have been quite difficult. This was iOS update phase that hit us as well quite hard.
Yes.
So yeah, there were challenges along the way as we were trying to scale a meta ad account.
Yes. Yes. No,
because
that all too
profitability
well.
was just dropping out the bottom every time we tried to scale content through Meta.
Yes. So were there times where you were like really flying close to the sun, where you and your mum were like, this might not be it? Always?
Like every day. Yeah. Like every day we're like, will we survive? Will we live to see the next day? I say that, but genuinely there was times where we were having to tip in more money to the business. Loans came in from, her and her partner into the business. We had maxed out the overdraft facility.
Yes.
We're getting to the end of that, 250,000.
Yes.
Like the runway was out.
Yes.
And so it was like, how much cash are we burning? We'd have a monthly P&L meeting.
Yes.
Where it'd be like, okay, how much money did we lose this month?
Yeah.
And like how much cash do we actually have in the bank? And we're so lucky that we had her because she had such an accurate view on cash flow. So she managed cash flow daily. We had daily cash flow, like projections on what invoices are coming through, what
you have to do when you're running it like that. Yeah.
So that's why I laugh and say it was every day, because she was looking at the cash every day.
Yes.
And so there was a lot of stress in the business going, oh my goodness, is it going to work? And if it's not, then we're personally guaranteeing that loan. We're going to lose all our friends' money. Like, we're going to lose all our money. For me at that time, like I'm young. I didn't have a mortgage. I don't have kids. Like, you know, it was like, okay, well, if I lose everything, then I'll just get a job, you know, and I'll earn the money back.
Yes.
For them, I think it was a bit different. And so, you know, they're later on in their life, they're like, oh, okay, we might just, you know, be really setting ourselves back with this one. So yeah, it was often we were worried about cash and strapped for cash and trying to come up with every solution that we could.
And when did it get to a point where you're like, yep, we're going to be good, and it really started to fly?
August 2022.
Okay. All right. So it was TikTok the unlock.
TikTok was the unlock.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I think you made a really good point around like that creative piece. Once you know how to really create good content, that's what scales, because not only does it help organically, but that's the stuff that works on ads.
Yeah.
Like right now it's 80% creative when it comes to media
100%.
buying.
That's exactly like the philosophy I live by.
Yeah.
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 And so now my team is built around content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk me through anything you could share. You know, our community would be punching me if I didn't ask you this. Like, what advice would you give to early stage startup founders when it comes to launching a brand? I always speak to the philosophy that you should be doing at least $500,000 through organic channels before you even try and test paid.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So I'm a big fan of going organic first.
Yeah.
Because that's your rite of passage to come to your discoveries. Like you talk to, and then you go to paid. But like, what advice would you give to early stage founders that are trying to drive traffic to their store, that are trying to use these organic channels? What kind of content? Do you have any rules?
I think, again, it depends on the category and who you're talking to. But if you can find like those pages that you think your customers are following, or that the content that you find really engaging. If I watch a piece of content, whether it might be like someone's daily vlog, I'm like, why did I watch that? Like, I'll dissect it. And I'm like listening to the voiceover and I'm like, what did they say in the first 3 seconds? They hooked me. Like, and I'll write down people's like first 3 seconds that they said in a video, just as like a future reference.
Winning hooks.
Of like,
Swipe file.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, it might be something so unrelated to my content, but there's a learning there that I can take. Like, why did this video get millions of views versus one that doesn't? And it, like, you know, we live in a world where attention is just like, you know, people don't have attention anymore. They have things being thrown in their face online every single second. So you have to grab them in like the first half a second or they're gone. So I think good content often comes down to like exactly that, like how it's put together, and how you get that like draw in from the customer group. And then I think you can do a lot with storytelling. I think storytelling and like that emotional pull, like why would someone care about the piece of content? I say that and then like I laugh because I look at some of the things that have gone viral on TBH this year and I'm like, I had none of that. So you just don't know. That's why I say like volume is key. But I think there's a certain way that you can go about it where you go like, okay, I'm going to be strategic in like how, and I always say, don't fall down the last hurdle. If you filmed a video, you've gone to the effort of like concepting it, creating it, filming it, don't fall down at the last hurdle. I say this to my team, like execute with excellence. So if you're posting a video and you've done all this work and we've put in all this effort, you know, we've prepped a stunt or anything like that, if you get the first 0.5 seconds wrong, the video is like gone. So hold and watch it 500 times, get other people to look at it and get the feedback, seek the feedback, because you don't want to like then, fall down the last hurdle. Yeah.
So you said something interesting as well. You've positioned the whole team and your strategy around that idea of content led. What does that look like?
it looks like a heavy amount of headcount in content.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
and a
what?
specific content team. Content doesn't live. So we have a marketing team. It's
Yes.
split into campaigns,
Yes.
content,
Yes.
and growth.
Yep.
And content is its own for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And is it mainly social, or just you got a lot of content creators effectively?
Oh, no, it's mainly social. And
Yeah.
I say like it's got a heavy head count. We've got 3 like marketing specialists, a senior content manager, and then interns
Yes.
in that team.
Yes.
Running across both the brands.
Yes.
In York Street at the moment. So they spend their time like majority on social.
Yes.
But they also do email and, you know, copy
Yep.
and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. Got you. They're doing the intern play.
Yeah. Interns, especially for TBH, are great because you're getting the customer in the door with the fresh eyes. You're getting the digital native.
Yes.
You're getting that person who's going like, yes, this is how I'm consuming media.
Yes.
I'm very much aware in my office that I'm 28 years old, and that's, you know, I'm becoming like, you know, they're like, oh, they'll roll their eyes at me now. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So that's a really key part though of us staying connected to this customer
And
group.
relevant. Yeah,
Yeah.
and on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
Got you. So talking about this merger and your model around how you have a parent brand, I
Yeah.
find that very interesting, and how that came about. Talk me through that thinking and how it all came
Yeah.
about.
Came about, like I said, in August of 2022 when
Yep.
something happened in the world and everything just started changing in the business. We were trying to find cash, so investment that would come with some sort of knowledge base.
Yep.
So advisory sort of, we wanted to bring in advisors, and we wanted cash that also came with knowledge or networks, or,
Yep.
you know, we realized that we had never done this before. If we were going to scale it, we needed someone else in the business who was going to help us.
Yep.
And so that was our goal. We started speaking to angel investors, private equity firms, like we spoke to everyone.
Yep.
And again, capital markets were still really bad.
Yep.
So I can't tell you how many times I pitched. It was like a full-time job on top of running the business, basically, was pitching and forecasting and changing the model and doing all this stuff. And one of the conversations that we had was with a private equity investor, and they said, oh, we actually have a skincare investment in our portfolio already. They're called Bootstrap. Looking at your business model and sort of the capabilities that you have in the founding team, we think that you should talk to them because there's potentially something there with complementary skill sets, you joining forces, like whatever that looked like. And so we met with Craig, who's one of the founders of Bootstrap, and he took one look at our business model and our numbers and stuff, and he was like, you guys are missing cash. So he was very much like, they had been private equity backed. They were like heavily retail focused, and we were pure play ecom, very much like operating on a much smaller cash budget.
Yes.
And he was like big believer in the model when he saw it and went, yeah, you just need cash. And what we wanted to build in terms of how we wanted to scale the businesses, the distribution channels, the team that we wanted to build behind it, we saw a huge opportunity to go way faster together.
Yes.
And that was ultimately like the reason why we wanted to join hands, was because we saw we could leverage each other. They didn't have brand sort of building internally in the company. They didn't have like ecom skill sets.
Yes.
They didn't have finance, you know, so, you know, with Bridget, she came in as CFO, took on all of like, they then had way more visibility over their cash flow and everything like that. And Craig is such a seasoned like entrepreneur. He has been in other consumer-led businesses before. He's seen how it works. He's exited other brands. Like he can do the capital raising, the investor management, like all of that stuff he's got down.
Yes.
And they had really strong retail relationships as well. And they understood how to scale. Like, you know, they knew how to, even from like a supply chain point of view, like understanding cash flow management, you know, warehousing, like all of these things.
Yes. They've seen the movie.
They've seen the movie. They know, you know, yeah, whatever, go take out that loan to finance, you know, the PO for Priceline because like, you know, no biggie.
Yeah.
We're going, what do we do? You know?
Yeah.
And so having that like wisdom in the business to encourage us to run like was actually a game changer for us. Yeah.
That's a very scary thing though, because this is your first business.
Yeah.
First 3 years, you've you know, you guys have done the hard yards to get it profitable, then
And we're about to,
and then do a merger. Like that's a lot. Like I know myself, my first 3-4 years in business, it was fun. Things were flying. I felt on top of the world. If someone tapped me on the shoulder to merge Foundr, I'd be very, very cautious and hesitant. Like where did, and it sounds like the deal came about pretty quickly.
Yes, so we started talking in August. It completed in March.
Yeah, 6 months.
6 months.
That's pretty decent.
We signed the deal sheet on I think the 23rd of December. I remember. No, it was Christmas Eve, 24. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, so yeah, that's a lot. Like you're like really speeding up that learning curve and really leaning into the unknown and uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could have done that 3 years in.
I don't, and again, I can't really explain it.
Yeah.
And it was a huge risk. I would say it's the biggest risk we've taken with the business.
Yes.
But we really understood our business, where the shortfalls were, what we needed access to, and we saw that this merger was going to give us that. I think the real risk for us was, who are the people that we're getting into business with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how'd you do that due diligence?
I mean, we had plenty of conversations with Craig and got sense that he was, a stand-up guy.
Yep.
And I think it was just something that we were going to have to risk. But again, it's not something we stood and pondered for too long, what could go wrong. We more saw the upside and hoped for the best. But yeah, so it was about getting to know the guy and also getting to know the investors that were already existing in Bootstrap.
Yep.
And I think we got comfort around that pretty quickly. Again, I think you can tell you say that, you'd still never know, but we thought, you know what, these are good people.
Yep.
We can work with them.
Yeah, and that's fundamentally what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
You want to just work with good people when you hear these stories, right, of, private equity or investors, and there's two sides to every table, right? Two sides of that coin. And I've had so many conversations where they work out really badly, and I've had so many that have worked out really well.
Yeah.
And so it's one of these things.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's working really well.
It is. Yeah.
So tell me what's next.
What is next? So, we merged March 2023. Both of the brands scaled very quickly. So again, TBH got an injection of cash. We went into retail. They supported us doing that. Bootstrap, I took on their ecom and their brand positioning, and that they took off on ecom, which was super fun to see. So the business has actually flipped. TBH is more of a retail brand now, and Bootstrap's more of an ecom based brand.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In terms of revenue split. So you could see the complementary skill sets coming together. However, we went through so many challenges in that first 12 to 18 months, because when we started scaling, the businesses, both of them, times by 4 in 12 months.
Yes.
So inventory, staff, all of these things became such a nightmare, and we didn't have process, HR, nothing. You're building it all from scratch. And so you sort of also have to slow down a bit. So I would say more recently what we've done with the business is sort of reset and go, okay, what are we building? What opportunities do we actually want to run after next? And I think we're becoming more considered now.
Yes.
Because we've built this great thing and we don't want to lose it. And so I almost think that there's more at risk now. And so it was about setting the foundation. So after the last financial year, as we were coming to the end of that financial year, it was okay, let's slow down, work out what processes we need in place. That was a lot of internal stuff. It was okay, let's get that down, proper supply chain management. We're spending crazy amounts on air freight every single month because we can't keep up with forecasts. We don't have internal staff looking at that properly, all of these things that were holes in the business that had we gone, put the foot down again, run even faster, it would have become our massive undoing.
Yes.
So it was about realizing that the growth profile of the business was quite different at that stage, and we actually had to cross out, T's and dot our I's and make sure that when we were going to go, okay, next stage of growth, that we actually had those foundational elements down. So now I feel like we've done a lot of that. And next we'll probably look at, okay, where are the key growth opportunities for both of the brands? I think export is going to be quite key. So international markets and seeing if we can hit one really well for both the brands. And again, not biting off more than we can chew, like going quite intentionally just into one.
Yes.
And then new product development was quite a hefty focus over the last few months as well. We're coming to the tail end of that. And again, resetting, taking the learnings, what could we improve on? And we've got a lot of growth still left in Australia. So also just optimizing current state and making sure we're not leaving anything on the table before we try and go elsewhere.
Yeah, and with all the, now you're taking on 2 brands. You said you take on the ecom side for Boost Lab. How do you work out how to split your time and team? Is it like it's more of a shared services model, right?
It is. So we've now become 17 people in marketing, and as a team, we service both businesses. It's almost like a mini, I don't want to say agency, but it's like almost like this little engine behind the brands. And we're working across both. The only part of the team that we split it out is in content. So everyone else works across both, and we don't split it. We don't have like a hard and fast rule on how time is split. It's project based. So it's like what's happening at this current point in time, what's the most important thing. It doesn't really matter if we end up spending 70% of the time on Boost Lab and 30% on TBH. It's like, it's just a business priority.
Yeah.
Just ticking off the priority list and going after what we need to first.
And for your personal brand though, and TBH is your baby, is that sometimes tough because you own half now? Well, you're splitting your time. Yeah.
I'm splitting my time. I think the TBH part has been harder because in order to do my role as CMO in York Street Brands, I've had to come out of that founder mindset of being in the day-to-day across everything, and particularly across content. And that has probably been a huge challenge. And I always say to the content team, there's this very fine balance of needing to be involved because you need to keep that heart.
Yes.
But then I also need to facilitate them and make sure they're autonomous and have ownership. And that is a very interesting dance to do that I think just requires a really high level of trust and open feedback in the team, which I have with the content team, which is really lucky. But I think that's been really difficult. But we've built an incredible model now within York Street. And I think, we'll be looking at how we can then leverage that across new brands.
That's what I was going to say. You'd be silly not to launch another brand underneath the parent or acquire another one.
And that's exactly what we'll be looking at.
Yeah. Okay. And how would you identify that? What would it look like? How would you talk me through that?
If we were looking at an acquisition, I always want to see a really strong community opportunity, an opportunity to build community. So either an existing one that's really strong or an opportunity to tap into one with that brand, the brand has legs to build community. And so strong founders in businesses I think are great, great stories to leverage, I think is an important part of building another business in terms of building that community. I love a niche. So the more niche it is, I think that's great because you can cut through really quickly in a saturated category. So if they're not already niche down, could they niche down? That's sort of the model at York Street is going community-based, niche, and building fast by doing that.
Yes.
And so looking for that opportunity in a potential business, but also just product. Product is the number one thing. How good's the product and why is it different? And then, can you do that with the brand? And then if we were building something, I think we're looking for customer pain point, underserviced niche within growing category, and incredible product or innovative tech. Yeah.
So we have to work towards wrapping up. I get the feeling that this might not be our last interview. You're on a wild trajectory. I was going to say, is there any kind of final words, parting words, any questions that you wanted me to ask you that I didn't ask you? I shared with you a little bit of our community, where they're at. Anything you want to share before we wrap up, Rachel? This has been awesome.
Oh, I think for the community, like you told me, these are mostly early stage founders, people thinking about building something or, in the early stages of building. I think it's such a all-consuming thing that you're going to take on. So you have to love it and prioritize joy at like every single part that you can, because otherwise, you know, you have this thing that runs your life, and there's always moments where you'll, I think, feel a bit like trapped by that, but like the joy, like find the joy in doing that, because I feel like that's what will make it successful. Like I've had so much fun along the way. I love my job. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for coming down to the studio, sharing your story, being so open, honest, vulnerable, sharing the crazy stories, and congratulations on all of your success thus far. Like I said, I think you're in for a wild ride, and I look forward to watching from afar.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
If you love this episode, make sure to check out my interview with Emma Greed on how solving a problem she was so passionate about led to the creation of Skims and Good American.
And so I do think so much of it starts with like addressing things that bother you, that you find, you know, you've got to create a solution for, because, you know, at the end of the day, you've got to be passionate enough and sometimes crazy enough to go round and round and round to actually solve a problem.